This video is for a Bilt Squall 2100 snowblower. The problem with this snowblower is when it's started, it can't be taken off choke immediately or else it'll die. And as you try and have it warm up, it does what's called hunting for a throttle position where it keeps bouncing between low idle and high idle. So we're going to go through taking the access panel off and then cleaning out the carburetor. Here's the access panel on the back of the snowblower. We've got 3 screws with 10mm drive. First screw's here. The other screws are down along the side on either side. So we're going to take that off. We've got to be careful with the choke lever that'll actually pass through this hole. And then these tabs on the bottom are what the panel holds in place on a frame rail on the bottom that we have to tilt it out of. Here we've got the access panel off. See, here's a fuel tank, the electric starter plug-in, the motor, the air intake housing, carburetor's behind this housing, top of the valve head, the exhaust, oil fill, oil drain for when doing an oil change. See around the side, there we got the recoil starter. And up under there, I'm going to actuate it, is for changing the chute position. So we got some 10mm nuts here, acorn nuts. We're going to pull those off. Have a couple items to take off as we take that housing off. Under here is the primer vacuum tube that goes into the top of the carburetor to the top of the float bowl. That's not attached to this air cleaner here, but around the back where my fingertips are, there's a little plastic clip that holds it in place. As you can see, it's up here, it just holds it in. This is the spark wire, spark plug boot with a heat shield around it. You can see we have the throttle crankcase, the crankcase ventilation tube that will be attached to this intake. We'll have to undo this clip, pull the hose off. We can take this assembly off. This is the choke arm extension, and there's a little indent here. And what we can do is pull this housing off, then rotate it around this thin point here and take it off the rest of the way. Alright, we've got the intake housing off. You can see our carburetor is fully exposed here. There's the choke lever and the choke throttle plate. Excuse me, the choke plate. The throttle plate's on the inside. This is the first gasket. It's actually a rubber impregnated steel gasket. You can see around the back, this is the throttle. It's a fixed throttle with a governor linkage and spring to the motor. This screw where my fingertip is, that's the low idle adjustment. There is no high idle adjustment, but what I found with this carburetor through many resources is that to take care of the hunting issue, you can clean the whole carburetor, which this one definitely needed. The pickup, the main jet, everything was clogged. It was a real mess. As you can tell, here's the fuel line, and there's no fuel filter on it, so everything was just a mess in there. But there's this little flat plug. You have to take out the low idle adjustment screw and then pop that plug out, and there's a jet in there, and that was clogged up. So I went through opening up the whole thing, took off the carburetor about 3 times, couldn't figure it out, found the resource, cleaned out that little plug, and I used a probably one of the more useful tools that I've had for servicing carburetors and cleaning them out, which is this little kit for cleaning welding tips. So there's a very thin wire gauge needles with some serrations on the side. I can feel with my thumb here, and these are usually used by welders. So this is one of the thinnest wires. I believe it's about 13 thousandths of an inch, and I was able to use that to clean out this little plug. Got the whole thing cleaned out, dried it, put it back together, and this thing worked fine. So I recommend, if you do have some junk in the bowl, maybe some old fuel, maybe some fuel that's not as clean as it should be, get into here. That might be your culprit right there. Now for putting this low idle screw back in place, it is a plastic screw, so you do have to be careful with it. There's a little half moon drive on it. I just used a slotted driver, just the right width to get in there and put it in. When I got it reseated, I just had it in enough that I can just feel with my fingertip back here. And I think that's about where it was set when I looked originally. So the low idle was good. I haven't run it through any snow yet to try and readjust it. Once you do this, you may have to run it under a snow load and then readjust it, and it should be good to go. So I hope this helped everybody, and good luck.